Welcome back. In this demonstration, we are going to work on our next watercolor skill sheet. You should have finished watercolor skill sheet number 1, where you made a variety of light washes that match your watercolors. Here being the warm red, the cool red, cool yellow, warm yellow, green, warm blue, cool blue, and dark cool blue. All right, so you should have finished this, and it should look something like this at the end. I should check it off and make sure that each of them has 4 different layers of color. Very light, light, a little darker, and the darkest. Okay. Once you've finished this sheet, you're going to work on what is called Watercolor Skill Sheet number 2. And this is working with your watercolors to create a variety of different mixes. And you can see how I've organized this as a color wheel. Okay, on the left-hand side, you'll see that it says use warm versions of the colors to complete this color wheel. And on the other side, it says please use the cool versions of the colors to complete this color wheel. To double check the warm and cools, you can reference this sheet where I've put all those in for you. And the idea here is on the outside ring, you're going to be mixing the colors wet on wet. On the inside star, you're just going to mix them into your pan and paint them directly into the square. Or if it's like, you know, the yellow, you can take it directly out of the watercolor pan. Okay, so to get started, you're going to put your name on your paper. I'm going to put Mr. Lundgren, because that's my name. And then put your grade number and your teacher's homeroom or teacher's name. Okay, then to get started, you will need a cup of clean, fresh water to refresh your own personal cup. Notice this one's nice and clean. And then an empty one to empty out your dirty water once it's dirty. It's super important that you keep your paintbrush very clean for this exercise. Whenever you wash it out, it should be completely clear, and you should have a paper towel sitting next to you to make sure that when you dry your brush off, there's no paint in it at all. Okay, so I'm going to get started with the warm version here, and I'm going to start with the warm red. This is my warm red. I'm just going to get some warm red right here in my mixing pan. This is pure warm red, and I'm going to just paint it inside the little triangle first. Going to kind of work all aspects of this together. Okay, then I'm going to start here and paint this area that's supposed to be red, reddish. Okay, and now part of this is you're going to have to move quickly. I want to make that one orange, so I'm going to wash my brush out, get some warm yellow, and mix it directly in here in my pan. And get kind of a warmish orangey yellow. I'm going to paint that right here and paint it over the top of my other one. Notice I'm moving quick and I'm working right over that border so I get a wet on wet kind of look. Okay, wash my brush out and get some more of that on my brush and paint it right into this triangle here. Notice I'm actually keeping my watercolors fairly transparent. I don't want them to be super dark. If you have time, you can kind of do one of, I put this dotted line in here, so you could do the inside light and the dark outside part darker if you want. But that's going to be a decision I kind of make directly in class. So here's my warm yellow. I'm going to paint it inside this warm yellow triangle. And then getting some more of that, I'm going to start here at the warm yellow and just paint it this way. And again, I'm going to try to work it wet on wet into that orangey area. Okay, now we're going to go over to our green area. I'm going to get some of my warm yellow and put it right here so I'm in my cool side of my mixing pan. Going to get a little bit of green and mix that in to get kind of a warmish green color. I'm going to paint that kind of starting right here because this would be my like yellow green. And I'm going to use my brush to kind of work those wet on wet back and forth. Right there. Then I'm going to get some pure green. Paint it in my green square, or sorry, triangle. And then work that from here up. Just going to rinse my brush off and just work that edge back and forth so there's not like a line. Okay, now my water is getting pretty dirty and I'm changing temperatures from warm to cool. So I'm going to dump out my dirty water, get a little bit of fresh water, wash my brush out again just to make sure I don't have a bunch of warm paint on my brush. Good, and now I'm going to continue on here. I'm going to get some blue. I'm going to get the warm blue. Here's my warm blue. It's the cobalt blue. You can kind of see that warm blue. And I'm going to paint it from here over. And I'm kind of holding my brush on an angle. You can hold yours straight up and down if you'd like, if that's easier. I have to do that for the camera, but if you can do it differently, that's better, as long as you're not smashing the brush down. Now I'm adding a little bit of blue into that green. I'm going to paint that right over the edge here and try to blend those edges together so I don't have so much of a line, but I have more of a easy color change from one to the other. Now I'm going to get to the violet, which I'm actually going to go and I'm going to mix right back here, even though I'm kind of going from cool over to warm now. Going to get some more red here. I'm actually going to paint this side here down to the violet. I'm going to get my warm blue and paint this one over to here so that both sides are wet. And then I'm going to get it, and it's really hard to mix because the blue is so powerful, but there we go. You're going to see that color come in. Now I'm going to paint that violet right here first. And then I'm going to blend it back and forth and try to even that edge up from one side to the other so that it looks more like a wet on wet wash rather than a line. Okay, whoops, and one last bit here, make this blue triangle with the cobalt blue. Okay, at the end you can wash that brush out really well, make sure there's no paint on it, set it aside, and you can write in orange, green, and violet. Those are our secondary colors. Okay, now you'll notice that my mixing pan here is quite dirty from all of my mixing. I'm going to use my leftover paper towel and just get a little teeny corner of it wet and wipe out my mixing pan so that in my next video when I do my warm colors, sorry, my cool colors, cool versions, I have a nice clean area to mix in, or if you're done mixing for the day, the next student who uses this in the art room will have a nice clean palette to do their mixing. And that concludes how to mix the first circle for our warm color versions of our watercolor skill sheet number 2.